Hello, I'm Super Orange Cat, and welcome back to the Downward Spiral. This is a bit of a mini-series I am doing as The Promised Neverland airs on Toonami every Saturday night at 2 a.m., where I basically give a brief synopsis each episode and give my thoughts as my mind slowly deteriorates, hence the title. So this week was episode 6 of Season 2, and I'll begin with a quick little synopsis of the episode. As we begin this episode, we will begin where we left off last episode with Ray and Emma meeting up with Norman again in the alley. They have another emotional moment. And then after that, they go back. Norman goes into the cave where the other kids are, and they're like, Norman, you're alive. And then Norman kind of explains himself, explains how he was forced into a project called Project Lambda, where he was basically tested the entire time. And he mentioned how he was able to escape along with some others, and we will meet them in a minute. And he was able to create a drug that would basically wipe out the entire demon race, pointing out, in the meantime, that the demons operate by taking the form of the species in which they generally eat. So those that are more or less humanoid got that way because they eat humans, and they need to eat the human brains to acquire their intelligence, and without a continuous source of that animal, they will deteriorate, turn to animals, and just kind of start killing each other. So, with that said, Norman says he has a plan, and as soon as tomorrow, he can just completely wipe out the demon race. All the kids are happy, and they have this nice kumbaya moment, but Emma looks clearly miffed at this. So then later, we have a 6-minute scene where she's talking to Ray, and she's surprised that Ray figured out that she was distressed about it. But then they kind of talk about it, and they come to conclusion they're both going to go in the morning to talk to Norman basically about this plan and talk about their qualms with it. So then they show up and they meet the other people that Norman escaped with. 3 people. I forgot their names except for Barbara, and you'll know why in a minute. I remembered Barbara's name. And they basically are really into the whole idea of, let's kill all the demons, let's kill all the demons. And they're really surprised about how Emma and Ray describe Norman as being more quiet, more happy. It's oh, he's kind of mean, he's kind of bossy, he's kind of this cold guy. So then afterwards, they're able to finally get a private audience with Norman, discuss perhaps this drug won't work, pointing out because of their experience earlier with Sanju and Mujika, who did not eat humans and seemed to be completely fine. And then Norman's oh wait, is one of them a young girl? And then yeah, it's I should have. It's you're telling me the the evil blood girl's still alive? And then he makes this face that anime villains make when their plans are being thwarted. And that ends the episode. So you can kind of read between the lines with how I'm acting that I did not like this episode a single bit. And I will go piece by piece dissecting this monster and basically give you my thoughts. First things first, one issue right off the bat I had was the explanation of how demons operated. How Norman was okay, these species, they basically take the form of who they eat. So they need to eat humans. If they don't, then they just kind of degenerate and turn into animals. So, with that being said, what I think they were going for here was to be like the xenomorph species from the Alien franchise, where they basically take on the characteristics of the species in which they are incubated in. But instead of that, they're doing it for what you eat, which raises a whole bunch of weird questions and a lot of inconsistencies just in that explanation alone. For example, we had just the last episode, we had multiple demons talk about, oh, we don't get good meat. And they specifically point out how they could not get brains. So by that logic, if brains are very scarce in random villages, why aren't the small villagers, especially the ones that are generally almost all humanoid, just completely killing each other at this point? And if there's already a precedent where they eat the species they're a part of, we only saw one different demon that did not look humanoid. Why wouldn't there be more? You would think that, especially if your parents, if you have parents that eat humanoid brains, you have kids, you know that humanoid brains aren't prevalent, but there's gonna be other game nearby that is. Why wouldn't you just wean your kids onto that? Because it can make your kids have better prospects for surviving. And also, they showed earlier last episode oh, you just kind of get sick and die if you don't eat humans. So that completely rips apart the whole part of Norman's plan. We're oh, they'll just start killing each other. No, they're just going to get sickly and die. That makes no sense whatsoever right there, you know? And I have not read up on what I like doing before the last few episodes was I read up on, I believe, the Promised Neverland's Reddit page. Like, go back to like their discussion when like these episodes first dropped, and be like, what did the people who are like big diehard fans of this, what do they think? What were their qualms of these episodes? I did not for this episode, so I'm going in completely blind about what many people had complaints with. So I'm going on what I had complaints with completely, and that one just made no sense to me. And it's clearly entirely set up out of contrivance to create a situation, which I'm going to discuss in a minute, which I really hate because I saw this trope coming a million miles away. And later on, let's see, another issue I had. This is a smaller issue. Okay, it's a very common thing in animation to have female voice actors do the roles of younger boys. Like, for example, The Simpsons, Nancy Cartwright, a woman, does the voice of Bart Simpson, you know, like other roles like that. And for The Promised Neverland's no different. Ray is voiced by Laura Stahl, who's a woman, and I forgot who voices Norman, but I know it's another woman. So all three of the main characters are voiced by women. And one kind of unique challenge that's there if you're a woman voicing a little boy character is that when you have like a moment of voice inflection, so like an emotional moment, you have to voice it in such a way that it still realistically sounds like it comes from a boy. And in the scene where like Ray like slaps Norman and hugs him and starts crying, you can definitely tell that Ray just sounds like a girl. Like, and not even like, oh, that's a boy, a little more high pitched. No, it just was that scene, and it was enough to baffle me to wonder why didn't they just do another take of it. But again, it dawned on me this could have been like the fifth take. They couldn't get any better, and they're like, "Look, this show's already a shit show. No one's gonna care about a small issue like that." And honestly, that's probably the truth right there. I mean, at the end of the day, at this point, there's much bigger things to complain about. Talking about which, I will tell you right here, the other three people, like Barbara and the two guys, I forgot the name. I think one's named Vincent. I hate these people with an unbelievable passion as characters. First off, especially Barbara comes off like someone's OC just got thrown right in. I don't remember. At this point, we've gone far enough from the manga. I'm not gonna count my own senses, right? Like, oh, I remember this, because honestly, this could have been a completely original character, and I wouldn't remember. This character feels like someone's OC. The other two guys kind of feel like OCs too, uh, and it just really felt like, for example, like you had this whole thing where it's like you could tell what they're trying to go with Barbara, like, oh, she's the really crazy one. The two guys, oh yeah, they're the two guys are the sociopaths, like, oh yeah, we want to genocide all the demons. We're cool about it, but we totally want to do this. Oh, Boss is kind of the same way too. But then Barbara's like really in your face about it. And like she goes right into Emma's face. And that might have been that moment, but I really hate these three characters. I especially hate Barbara as a character here. And it's just one of those things, I feel like it's more than just oh, they're played as foils to the main characters. It's more of I feel like someone wrote these characters in because they needed to write characters in. Like at this point, honestly, it could have worked just as well if Norman's like, oh, I went rogue and I kind of turned into this mad scientist because of my fixation on hating the demons. That would have made much more sense than what they're probably going to end up with here, you know? And oh my god, I hate Barbara so freaking much. It's like, look at her. And this is the picture I'm using here. That is Barbara. You can see it literally says that's Barbara at the bottom. That's the dialogue. But still, you cannot tell me she did not look like someone just threw their OC that they made after season one in there and legit made her a character. You cannot tell me that, you know? And she reminds me a bit of, if you've ever watched Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc V, it was the fifth, like, kind of edition of Yu-Gi-Oh! There was a character in the last season named Rei Akaba. She looks so much like Rei Akaba. I'm honestly starting to think that they took the palette design from Rei Akaba and just changed a few things around at this point. But go back, if you ever go back, look up Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc V Rei Akaba. You cannot tell me they do not look very similar, especially if the weird multicolor hair scheme they go with here, you know? Honestly, and that just threw me off at this point, you know? That's another thing. That's another show that had a very infamously bad end, you know, Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc V. I could go all day about that controversy, but again, focusing in Promised Neverland. And yeah, at the end here, and you have these characters, and then you had ultimately, and another thing I had with, I kind of skipped over, was I've mentioned a few times how this season has had moments where they would just stop for 5 minutes for no reason whatsoever. Like, scenes where they're like hunting for like the blackfishes on trees. And also like the 3 different montages to piano music we had earlier this season. In a season where you're rushing through everything, stopping time like that really ultimately hurts you. And I felt like the scene where Ray was talking to Ray's a very common name in this episode, I guess. Ray was talking to Emma about basically her feelings about this whole plan really could have been done in 30 seconds and had the same exact effect. Because, like, Emma's like, how did you know? It's like Ray should have been like, girl, I've known you for 11, 12 years at this point. It would have been weird if I haven't picked up on idiosyncrasies yet. And she's like, actually, like, no, fair. It's like, Emma, at the same time, Emma, you know you wanted to tell someone about this. Best you tell Ray to think things through before you say something really stupid. And Ray even pointed this out to her. It's like, Emma, I know how this is going to end. You're going to say shit at the worst possible time. Fuck this all up. Tell me now so we can talk to Norman before he does anything so we're all on the same page, basically, with this, you know? But that ultimately becomes, and ultimately, like, the one thing I liked about this episode, and I think people are going to give me pushback on this, I liked Norman's characterization change. Like, I think it would have been so boring, so dull if he was the same old Norman from 2 years ago, or how long it's been at this point, you know? I like the fact that he's kind of become bitter, because he has the right to, and that's one thing I ultimately will favor the 3 OCs about, is that they had even worse torture than the kids with. The kids had like a nice life where they're going to get killed at the end, but these people got straight up tortured the whole time. And I was getting a little worried for a moment because when Barbara was ranting, talking about the stuff they did to my body, I'm like, if this was written by the guy from Sword Art Online, we're going to have a 5-minute montage with piano music showing her getting sexually molested by demons. Fortunately, this is not made by the same guy who did Sword Art Online, so we were saved from that. But at the same time, it really feels preachy. And like I know it's like they have every right to complain, but I don't want to hear it. Like, and it's like it's the obvious stuff. And what season 1 did a great job of was they had nuance. They didn't have to say every little thing that came to their minds. They didn't have to say everything out for the viewer because a lot of things were shown. Like ultimately it's show don't tell. This season, when a character's motivation, they scream it out loud. These 3 OCs, especially Barbara, are like the biggest violator of that, you know? And I feel like that's why I ultimately hate these characters. These characters felt like characters thrown in to further a plot point rather than characters that belong to the story, in my opinion, you know? And I could go all day about this, but look, I'm probably like 15 minutes into this video. It could be 5 minutes. I've lost all track of time, you know, at this point, but I'm trying to think of other things I had this episode pointed out on. Really, this episode, I feel like is so far the worst of the season. And when I was thinking of like how bad it was, I thought they're just gonna completely run roughshod over a plot, not even follow through, like plot holes galore type issue. But the fact that we have 3 OCs in the plot here, characters that were written so poorly they feel like original characters, really, really, it was kind of a surprise I was not expecting. That's the twist I didn't see coming, you know. Ultimately, if I had to rate this episode, I would give it a 3 out of 10. And oh yeah, I forgot one thing. Okay, so basically, it's very clear what they're going to go for as a whole. Well, humans could be monsters too, kind of trope, you know, the whole, oh, demons are hunting humans, but the humans would hunt the demons if given the chance to. And at the same time, the only property I could think of that's ever done this in a way that paid off was probably Hunter x Hunter during the Chimera Ant arc. Oh, by the way, something a lot of people don't pick up on, the Chimera Ant arc actually is an allegory for World War II. Think about it. Especially if you see the Chimera Ants as the Imperial Japanese army, and if you see the Zodiacs as the Americans. And I never picked up on that. And it's a lot of like Japanese history, a lot of like Japanese lore you have to pick up on. Let's just say the Japanese going into that war felt invulnerable. They felt like God ordained us to win. And when they got hit with nuclear weapons, which was the Little Rose or Black Rose bomb that ultimately would kill Miriam and the rest of the Royal Guard sans Pito, showed that, yeah, the Americans are willing to go to absolutely inhumane depths to win this war. And that's something that threw off the Japanese at the time. And that's what surprised them and ultimately led to their surrender. Okay, that was a bit of a rant, a bit of a politically charged rant there. But back to the Promised Neverland again, 3 out of 10, not a good episode. I hate Barbara. I hope she gets killed off in the next episode. I have never felt that way about a character before. I just want her to get killed off. I want her to be ripped in half and eaten slowly and painfully by a demon. I'm rooting for the demons at this point. I'm rooting for a scenario where, like, I don't know. They might follow the manga with the ending. I don't know at this point. They've gone far enough from the manga. It could be a completely different ending. I'm hoping now for an ending where, like, the demons live, but they're, like, totally cool with, like, Emma, Ray, and, like, the other kids, and they just completely kill off these three OCs. Be okay with Norman living too, but, like, these three OCs, I just want to die. I just want to die painfully and slowly. Okay. If you like this, if you want me sweaty, ranting about characters I hate in anime, like, comment, subscribe if you want more Downward Spiral content, yeah. If you have any opinions, if you have comments, if you agree, if you disagree with me, leave your comments, leave your opinions down below. I love reading them. If you like this, comment, like, subscribe, whatever. I am the Super Orange Cat, and that is all.